This is Rulk. This is a worm god. This is Savathun. Rulk is very powerful, partially due to his hand in destroying all life on his home planet eons ago. The Witness, our darkness figurehead in Destiny 2, helped him do this and took Rulk on as his first disciple. Rulk shows up at the planet of Fundament, the home to what would become the three Hive gods, Oryx, Savathun, and Xivu Arath. Rulk kills this giant creature named the Leviathan underneath the planet's ocean, which was trapping the worm gods underneath of it. A single rib of this beast is found in Rulk's ship, a darkness pyramid. Rulk negotiated with but mostly threatened the worm gods below Fundament's oceans into working with him, and he took this mother worm, named Xita, that we see in the Vow of the Disciple to his pyramid, where he could create a factory of hive larvae that will live inside of all hive. Now these hive larvae demand bloodlust, and through the bloodlust the hive are fed. But the excess power from this lust is given up through the chain of command, from a thrall to an acolyte, from a knight to a wizard, all the way up to the hive gods, then the worm gods, and then to Rulk. The Witness, through Rulk, ultimately tricked 3 members of a race called the Krill on the planet of Fundament into becoming the hive gods I previously mentioned. This is in a larger attempt to subdue and destroy the Traveler. Before I give some more background context before we establish this year's main punches, if you aren't subscribed, remember to do so if you like this, and if you are, thank you so much for being here. And if I'm wrong on anything, call me out in the comments down below. I did a lot of research for this, but some of it I still might be off on. Our hive god of deception and cunning, Savathun, kidnapped and impersonated Osiris in order to spy in the last city. In the last season of Beyond Light, she allows herself to become trapped in a crystallized prison and offers to return Osiris to us if we can exorcise her worm from her body. There's a great reason she wants to separate from her worm, but I will come right back to that. An important character, Crow, is the awoken queen Marasav's twin brother. Crow, before he was resurrected as a guardian, killed an important leader of the last city, and reopened a city hidden away between realms in order to find his sister. However, he was tricked by the darkness into opening up this hidden city for everyone, good and evil alike. We killed him, but as a guardian now, he didn't remember his past. That is until he touched Savathun in her crystallized state, in which she restored every memory, every past misdeed and sin, and that forced the big burden of him to be continually haunted by who he used to be. After this, we separate Savathun's worm from her, and we are given Osiris, though he is in a coma, while simultaneously finding Mars has returned to us from the darkness. The Witch Queen. Mars has returned to us from an anomaly between known and unknown dimensions. When it returns, it is littered with time shifts, which show areas of Mars that existed during the Golden Age. This is because the Witness took Mars and razed through every bit of its past and present, searching relentlessly for information on something. Something important, something that we close the circle on by the end of this video. We discover Savathun has invaded Mars, followed by an active Cabal assault on her ship. Upon reaching the ship via shooting ourselves at it through an oversized cannon, we find the Lucent Hive, a breed of hive that somehow have the very same light that we do, with ghosts that must be killed, lest the hive come back to life. Savathun wanted to break from her worm for a reason. She became disillusioned about her deal with the darkness and was planning to leave the Witness. What kind of deal, you might ask? The one that we were shown at the end of the Witch Queen campaign, where Savathun and her sisters were lied to by the worm gods and Rulk, foretelling a prophecy of great loss if they did not take up their worms and become the Hive. But her issue with separating from her worm was this. Rulk was sent to keep watch on Savathun in her throne world. Her throne world is a location in another realm, in which she can create a place that is a reflection of her mind, and the place grows with power. Rulk was here in order to destroy Savathun if she were to step out of line. Both Rulk and Savathun were displeased with this. Ralk felt he was being punished for a previous failure before he came to the planet of Fundament. He felt jealous, as the Witness had potential plans to turn Savathun into his disciple. He mostly saw the Hive as disgusting and unworthy, so Ralk, who was behind the scheme, was a huge problem for Savathun, as she would surely be destroyed by him for breaking free. It is this issue through which Savathun then kidnapped and impersonated Osiris, and through him she spied on us in our city, and ultimately forced us to rid her of her worm. In doing this, Savathun dies an actual death, but the Traveler, of its own free will, resurrected her. When this happened, her throne world was flooded with light, and the landscape physically rearranged itself. Mountains crumbled, cities fell and were replaced, and suddenly Savathun had a way to deal with Ralk. She couldn't kill him, but she went on a huge assault on his pyramid and she sealed him away, taking his source of power from him in the process. The light in the throne world should have banished darkness, but Ralk and his pyramid were essentially a huge battery for the darkness, and as a result the Scorn, which are controlled by the darkness, and Ralk specifically, waged war with the Hive for control of the throne world, and thus, in a weird, twisted way, we have a war between light and darkness on the throne world. You see, at the time we did not know that the Traveler brought back Savathun out of its own volition. We assumed that she simply found a way to steal the light, but however, like anyone born in the light, there is no past for Savathun to remember. With the help of a rogue Hive ghost, we delve into Savathun's throne world in order to recover lost relics from Savathun's past. There we offer them up to an altar, so that we can see into Savathun's past mind and intentions. Through these memories, Savathun is watching, and she remembers her initial intent before she died, to destroy Ralk once and for all. She then begins to materialize the Traveler into her throne world, which would help her completely kill Ralk, but we put an end to that and to her. Well, she is technically dead, but she's a guardian. Her ghost is out there, and to my knowledge it is rumored, but not stated, that the Traveler took Savathun's ghost away from the throne world. Savathun's body is under lockdown and kept hidden by the Vanguard. The area in which we killed Savathun was swept to rid it of genetic material so the ghost could not come back and resurrect her. Savathun is still, technically, a light bearer, just like us, in a state of limbo. In preventing the Traveler's appearance inside of the throne world, Ralk is our issue, so we cracked open his pyramid and we restored his power to him in order to ultimately kill him. This establishes that the disciples and the Witness are not unbeatable. Season of the Risen. This season takes place during and after your assault on Savathun and the first disciple of the Witness. The Vanguard and a certain sect of Cabal are allied, with Zavala, the Guardian's leader, and Keitel, the Cabal leader, at the helm of this alliance. However, another sect of Cabal exists under the reign of Keitel's father, Callus, which we will touch on later. You and other Guardians are tasked with weakening and capturing Hive light bearers, called the Lucent Hive, in order to psychically analyze them. You delve into these Hive's minds and sever their connection to Savathun, and they are brought to our small mobile base, the Helm, where Keitel has a scion analyzing these mentally broken Hive. Everyone has concerns and disagreements with this method of analysis, including Zavala, Iron Lord Saladin, Crow, and even the scion performing the psychoanalysis itself. However, Crow is the only one to do more than just voice concern that this is not right. It is likely fueled by the guilt of his unmerciful past that I mentioned earlier. Lord Saladin chews him out and gives him a story in which Saladin made a wrong choice in the name of mercy a long time ago, and it cost the blood of a lot of innocent people. He tells Crow that he will not make the same mistake of mercy again. Along the way, we find the Lucent Hive are capturing Guardians and storing their light in crystals, which begs the question, why take our light when they have their own? The Lucent Hive are collecting light in order to perform a ritual on the moon that will summon Savathun's throne world into the Scarlet Keep, which is a separate Hive keep on the moon. We step in to stop the ritual. As we do that, Crow goes quiet on the radio, and we come back to the helm to realize that he separated the scion from the analysis machine thing. And in the process, the scion dies. Keitel is beyond angry, and demands one of our own as recompense for Crow's actions. Primarily, she wants Crow's life. Zavala is just about to stand up and blow this alliance up in order to protect one of his own. But Lord Saladin steps in and makes an overwhelmingly merciful act towards Crow. He offers his life to the Cabal Empress. Keitel is beyond impressed with Saladin's bravery, and instead she takes him to serve on her war table for the rest of his days. Saladin there quickly rose through the ranks and became both revered and beloved by the Cabal, including the Empress herself. Saladin also voices that he believes it was his place to show Crow mercy, and that he actually enjoys serving Keitel and her sect of the Cabal. In Saladin joining the war table and rising through the ranks so swiftly, it brings the once fragmented human-Cabal alliance closer than ever before. Through this, we find an old Cabal base on Mars is broadcasting propaganda in order to recruit the Cabal against Keitel and with her father, Callus. Callus has been missing for some time now at this point, but we find that this scion in charge of the propaganda and broadcast is sent directly from Callus. There are 4 separate broadcasts that we find, along with statues, pots, and a chest from Callus himself. In one of these broadcasts, we see and hear of a dark future, which we have been actively preventing this entire time. It speaks of Callus's return, a city under siege, the return of a certain fallen leader, and a darkness-infested traveler. Season of the Haunted. Callus, Keitel's father, has always been yearning for the attention of the Witness. It's also a power-hungry lust that he has in him. His mind and his body have been fading. Long ago, he was sent into exile on the Leviathan, his ship, which is named after the Leviathan underneath Fundament's oceans, by his daughter and another Cabal lieutenant, Gaul. This is essentially what created the split in Cabal. Keitel was leading her own sect. Callus leads his sect, the Loyalists, and Gaul leads what we call the Red Legion. The Red Legion attacked the last city and the Traveler in the first few minutes of Destiny 2, almost 6 years ago, and Gaul attempted to seize the light from the Traveler. This act awoke the Traveler, which had been asleep since the collapse. This killed Gaul, and all other Red Legion had either been imprisoned or killed, leaving only 2 other chapters of the Cabal. Callus communed with the darkness long ago, and has been looking for a way to commune again, since he felt he was being left behind by the darkness. Now, Callus shows up next to Earth's moon with his giant planet-eating beast of a ship. Inside of the moon lies a dormant pyramid ship, with an ancient and long-dead disciple inside, named Nezarec. Callus pulled up next to the moon and is attempting to commune with the pyramid on the moon, and we attempt to sever his connection that he seeks with the darkness. In this, the once dormant pyramid begins reacting to the Leviathan's presence, and in that, it manifests the players' and other guardians' deepest fears and regrets, which bear the name of nightmares. Eris Morn performs a Hive ritual with Zavala, the player, and Crow. Keitel was urgently invited, but she thought it was silly, so she chose not to join. The ritual was to bind Zavala, Crow, and our nightmares within our respective bodies, helping us expel the darkness from these manifestations. Though Keitel did not initially take part, the nightmare of Gaul haunted her. We partake in a ritual called Severance, and this revolves both you and one other member from the ritual at a time planting things around the Leviathan to sever Callus's connection to the darkness. Now, Callus's once opulent ship is absolutely infested with this type of fungus from a very distant planet, called Egregore fungus. This Egregore feeds on and opens the minds of strong individuals sharing one common goal. It is said that the Egregore helps others commune with the darkness, while it corrupts their thoughts and eventually controls their will. It allows all beings affected by it to share the goals and the will of the one powerful one who controls it. Let it be known that not once have we seen Callus with our eyes. We see statues and mechanical robots built in his supposed likeness, but it is stated that Callus is in an incredibly weakened and fragile physical state. This fungus connects him with his ship, and he mentions to us in a robotic message that he can feel us fighting along his steely skin, wriggling inside of his belly as we fight on and in the Leviathan. His psyche is spread across the entire ship, and him and the ship are now one due to this Egregore. As we attempt to sever Callus's connection to the Moon Pyramid, nightmares manifest, and we enter the ritual that I mentioned before with Crow, Zavala, then Keitel. While this season absolutely fleshes out the deep and somber backstories of every one of these characters, it doesn't play into the overall picture that I'm telling, so I'm going to leave them out. However, I recommend if you haven't checked these out that you do so. They're worth your time. After failing and then completing the ritual with each one of the aforementioned characters, we sever the Leviathan's connection from the Darkness Pyramid. Except whoops, we really don't. We're just too late to cutting Callus off completely, and yeah, we injured him and cut off a part of his psyche, but for all intents and purposes, we absolutely failed to stop Callus. Without going into too much detail about the Duality Dungeon, we got to delve into Callus's minds and memories, steal his secrets. We find more details about how he was cloning and breeding his race of Cabal, that he was struggling to use Hive instruments to reconnect himself to the darkness forever ago, and that his own daughter, his prized star, had betrayed him as an emperor, and both Keitel and Gall sent Callus into exile aboard the Leviathan, before he initially found the darkness at the supposed edge of the universe. We see that through this trauma with his daughter and being sent into exile, he's been chasing that power ever since he met the darkness at the edge of the universe and is seeking transfiguration with the Lunar Pyramid so that he can legitimately serve the Witness as a disciple. Anyways, our severance ritual didn't work in time and Callus uploaded his consciousness into the Lunar Pyramid. Callus is now, for all intents and purposes, dead. He is to be reborn as a harbinger of the Witness, and as for his story, the rest unfolds in Lightfall. Season of the Plunder. And then there's Nezarec. Let's talk about Nezarec. This guy was a disciple of the Witness, predating humanity's golden era. Rulk was primarily responsible for Nezarec's ascension as a powerful disciple. Rulk's story is detailed. We know that he ended up annihilating his home planet, garnering the attention of the Witness just beforehand. And this feat is what made him worthy to be a disciple. Nezarec's own feats aren't laid out for us like Rulk's was. Instead, the legend of Nezarec in ancient texts paints a blurry but intricate picture of how he came to be a reviled fiend in the Sol system. He is described as a final god of pain, arch and vile in ways unknown. Nezarec led the charge on Earth that came to bring about the first collapse, almost wiping humanity and the Traveler from existence. The Traveler sacrificed itself to repel the attack, which ended up with Nezarec's pyramid ship crash landing on the moon, eventually becoming entombed below its crusted surface. His corpse lies inside of that pyramid, which was raided by the Elixni long before now. Fragments of his body were harvested and stored both inside of relics and as jewelry, and our beloved fallen ally, Mithrax, had been given one of these relics in his youth, leading to his reign of terror as a bloodthirsty pirate. These relics possess a latent dark power, and can potentially corrupt the minds of those who hold them. I say potentially because the Drifter also has had a piece of Nezarec for a while, and he's fine, mostly. These pieces of Nezarec are scattered across the Sol system, if not the galaxy. The Witness wants these relics, so he unthaws Aramis, the leader of the fallen House of Salvation on Europa. Aramis and Mithrax's relationship is similar to Keitel's and Callus's. They both lead differing sects of the same race, But while Mithrax leads his group of Eliksni that reside peacefully in a small quarter of our beloved city, Aramis leads her house to enact the Witness's will under its tight control. Aramis becomes free again, and needs to seek out these relics for the Witness. She sends unaligned fallen raiders all across the system in an attempt to retrieve these relics with the promise of rich rewards. We put a permanent stop to this tomfoolery by slowly killing the fallen captains that hold these relics and stealing them back for ourselves. While we gathered relics, the Lucent Hive step up to acquire some that we also steal from them as well. As far as I know, their intentions with stealing these relics are very vague and mostly unknown. Mithrax's daughter, Ido, is a scribe for Mithrax's house, the House of Light. She desperately wants to bridge a gap between Mithrax and Aramis. Not bridging the gap as in converging both sides into one united front, but she's holding on to old Eliksni tradition between rival houses. Ido is innocent, and while still young, she is incredibly intelligent. Her father desires to keep his past a secret from her, because she's so sweet and she really looks up to him. But Mithrax has an extremely dark past, with an incredible knack for great violence. Mithrax turned a new leaf long before today, but that past haunts him closely. As I stated, he was a bloodthirsty pirate that ripped and tore his way through the galaxy, raiding with his crew. He hunted for those dark relics long ago, killing his own kind in cold blood. At an incredibly young age, his name became something that echoed across the galaxy. Mithrax had an epiphany upon leaving the old cruise, becoming an agent of peace. But like I said, his legacy follows close. Upon retrieving all of the known relics of Nezarec, Mithrax is able to study them and to make a tea from them, which awakens Osiris. Remember, he was left comatose by his exorcism of Savathun. Osiris returns to the land of the living with more than just his memories of his past and his lover, the Saint 14. He returns with knowledge on Savathun's secrets and thoughts, her fears, and everything in between. Osiris is not trusted by the Vanguard, primarily by Ikora Rey, who used to be Osiris's apprentice. Osiris is kept under very close watch by Ikora's hidden agents, of which Osiris is very aware, and he even confronts one of them in a dark alley in a lore book somewhere that I forgot about. More on Osiris in a minute, because it is time to build a war mind. Season of the Seraph. We need to talk about the Spire of the Watcher dungeon. During the Golden Age, Clovis Bray of the Braytech Foundation collaborated with another research facility, the Ishtar Collective. They came together in order to work on an extragalactic colonization effort. Specifically, they were looking for a place in the Andromeda Galaxy for humanity to settle and colonize. To do this, they created an AI named Soteria. This AI's purpose was to navigate the cosmos, find a hospitable planet for the colony ship, and to communicate to those left in the Sol system. This collaborative effort led to her being present both on board a colony ship hurtling towards another galaxy, while also being present back home. However, when Soteria, whose namesake means deliverance in Greek, was analyzing the Andromeda Galaxy, she found something she called an anomaly. She did not know what it was or why it was there. She did know it was incredibly mobile and dangerous. So she overrides her own protocol as she believed this anomaly was an existential threat to humanity. Both Braytech and the Ishtar Collective were demanding Soteria continue on or send more information. Soteria had no information to send and she refused to carry on. She wrote over her own commands and sent a message and a warning to Rasputin, the AI warmind and defender of humanity, which is how he understood the threat and geared up for the collapse, part of which involved never letting the traveler leave if the darkness comes close again. More on that soon. Soteria's disobedience infuriated Clovis Bray, and he used one of 4 towers on Mars, originally intended to harbor Rasputin should he go rogue, and imprisoned her inside of it. But he didn't simply just imprison Soteria. This tower was a loom that pulled and yanked on the threads of her existence and scattered them across completely isolated points in the Sol system, rendering her unable to do anything, existing in a state of undone limbo. However, when Clovis did this, she was able to fragment an incredibly small part of herself and inject it in the colony ship, now flying beyond the asteroid belt. This fragment was small and did not know what to do, where to go, or even why it existed. But it was the only surviving part of Soteria outside of this tower, and it is likely what led to Neomuna, a large city on one of Neptune's moons, hidden away, cut off from everyone. And it is our focus in the coming Lightfall expansion. Remember Soteria? We're not quite done with her role in the story yet. Rasputin, the powerful AI warmind I just mentioned, was tucked into an engram by Anna Bray, right before Mars was taken out of our realm by the darkness. Anna is the half-granddaughter of who I mentioned previously, Clovis Bray. Both Anna and Rasputin escaped right before Mars disappeared, before the events of the Witch Queen. Rasputin was intended to be a weapon to wield, but Anna, before the collapse, before she was a guardian, went to great lengths to teach Rasputin independent thought. She died in the collapse, and much later she was revived by the Traveler as a guardian. Unlike almost all guardians, she knew who she was when she awoke. She had her Braytech name tag on her body. Anna now desires to rebuild Rasputin, as his code was degrading inside of his engram. Because his code was decaying and because no one knew how to actually restore him, we, the player, alongside Anna Bray and Osiris, reluctantly sought the help of the late Clovis Bray's AI, who did in fact know how to rebuild Rasputin. While this is happening, both Aramis and an earlier mention, Xivu Arath, are seeking to disrupt and control the split fragments of Rasputin. We'll talk about his fragments in a minute, because we need a quick briefing on who Xivu is. Xivu Arath is Savathun's sister, but being siblings did not mean they worked with each other. Xivu Arath leads her own chapter of the Hive, and she is the Hive god of war that annihilated Keitel's home planet of Torabatal. Xivu Arath can essentially mind control other species that are not Hive, by turning them into what we call Wrathborn. These Wrathborn are controlled by these Hive cryptoliths that grow with Xivu's influence. Anyone can be subject to become a Wrathborn, even Hive that do not already serve Xivu Arath. The cryptoliths also disrupt and influence electronics, allowing her to override any protocols that Rasputin or Clovis may have had in place at any given time. Xivu Arath is also working with the Witness in order to enact its will. But here's an issue. As punishment for Aramis's failure to retrieve the relics of Nezarec, Xivu Arath is converting the living fallen of House Salvation into her mind-controlled Wrathborn, while the Witness is resurrecting her dead allies as mindless zombies called the Scorn, causing Aramis's crumbling House of Salvation to thin out. Aramis isn't someone that blindly serves the Witness. She's an antagonist that has her own will, her own thoughts and desires. More than most, Aramis desires to see her House of Salvation thrive. She wants revenge on the Traveler, and she wants to restore honor to the Elixni people. The Traveler is entirely responsible for the Elixni race, known as the Fallen, being left to suffer through their own collapse, long before Destiny's story begins. The Elixni called this event the Whirlwind, and Aramis is partial to the Witness's desires because she has her own feelings of hatred in her heart for the Traveler. But back to Rasputin being split into fragments. He is split into several of them, which are spread and isolated across different planets and moons. He cannot access them or communicate with them, and those fragments act as mini Rasputins. As a result, we raid several Warmind bunkers to retrieve these pieces of him in order to restore his code. While we do it, the darkness is also attempting to steal these fragments from us. This results in essentially a tug-of-war for those who can grab the fragments first, as they play a pivotal role in the control of a mighty Warsat network that can cause complete annihilation across the cosmos if in the wrong hands. We restore Rasputin piece by piece, and eventually we give him enough power to function inside of an exo body, where Clovis was previously operating from. Because Clovis's selfish intentions to wield Rasputin as a weapon interfered with everyone's best interests, he is deservingly removed from the exobody so that Rasputin can reside in it instead. For the first time in almost 10 years, Rasputin is given an actual voice. Our goal at this point is to infiltrate what we call a seraph station, a satellite station set right outside of Earth's orbit. Both we and the Darkness have been collecting Rasputin's fragments and code in order to gain access to this orbital station. Before now, no one could get inside. Rasputin's protocol was to kill anyone on sight, and he used his Warsat network to destroy a Cabal cruiser when Keitel recently attempted to gain access to the station. However, with Rasputin out of commission, as in not being linked with the station anymore, Xivu Arath is able to override his old protocols, allowing both the Fallen and the Hive to flood the station. The station has much deeper context behind it. The station is a control center for the Warsat network. Briefly, the Warsats are these manufactured space weapons that travel around like asteroids. They can be controlled, positioned, and can fire deadly lasers at anything that the AI deems a threat. With Rasputin mostly restored, he tells us that he's planned on using this space station along with the Warsat network as a means to monitor and destroy the Traveler should it leave humanity. It wouldn't be the first time the Traveler left a species to fight for themselves. The protocol to destroy the Traveler is called Abhorrent Imperative, which was to stop the Traveler from leaving Earth during a major calamity. The quote that came to mind long ago is that some must die so that others may live, though we're going to see soon that this plays out very differently. We must fight our way inside of the Seraph Station in order to gain control over the Warsat network before Aramis and Xivu Arath does. However, the awoken Queen Mara Sav informs the Vanguard and their allies that the fight for the Warsat network will end in complete annihilation. She explains that the Hive God of War, Xivu Arath, needs relentless bloodshed as a tithe in order for her and her army to traverse from Xivu's throne world in a different realm to ours. She explains that this is how Xivu was able to destroy Keitel's home planet, Torobatl. A massive portal ripped open in the sky and legions of Hive bled through, burning up the planet and forcing the Cabal to flee. Our attempt to regain access to the Warsats so that we may use them against Xivu Arath's forces will cause so much bloodshed that she will be able to open a portal right above Earth, bringing us to the same dark future we were trying so desperately to avoid. In this, our struggle for victory is our complete defeat, and Rasputin defeatedly admits he does not know of any other way to stop Xivu than to use the Warsats against her. So Mara suggests that we come to a sort of stalemate. Absolutely no one gets to use the Warsat network. While this happens, Osiris is still obsessed with the thoughts of a place called the Nephele Stronghold that Savathun was both searching for and fearing of. Why she wanted to find this place is most likely because it hides the Veil, an artifact linked to the Traveler's immense power. However, no records of this supposed colony is anywhere. Not in Vanguard files, not in Rasputin's archives. Osiris, desperate to prove himself trustworthy to the Vanguard, demands that Rasputin find something, anything, on this supposed colony. But then, a Spire awoke on Mars. In the Spire of the Watcher dungeon, which we previously discussed the backstory for, we find that the power to the Ares Tower has been restored, and this becomes Osiris' opportunity to search for more information on the hidden Nephele stronghold. However, we weren't the first to appear. Aramis must have infiltrated the Ares Tower before the Vex appeared, likely gathering key information for the witness. She leaves us messages amounting to scorn for the Traveler, asking us to rationalize our relentless defense for a god that we so choose to serve. Meanwhile, a branch of Vex called the Soul Divisive are setting up shop around the tower both outside and in. These Vex exist under the witness's influence, and he sent them here to rip apart the place for more information on the Nephele stronghold. It is important to note that not all Vex serve the witness, just the mossy ones, the sole divisive. This goes all the way back to Destiny 1, almost 10 years ago, in the Black Garden. The Vex didn't know what to do with the black heart at the center of the garden, and they chose instead to worship and reform themselves in its vision, as that would be the best course of action. Only these Vex, the sole divisive, serve the witness. Inside of this tower, we free the being known as Soteria. She has a brief moment to escape just before the Vex can plan a solid defense, and she stores herself inside of the weapon hierarchy of needs, whose namesake is after the basic pyramid of needs for survival and self-fulfillment. Soteria, beaten, battered, and broken down after centuries of being pulled apart, lives with us now, though she is generally non-communicative and non-cooperative. However, through Soteria and her story, we discover the Nepheli stronghold might be just more than a fragmented thought in Osiris's mind. At the very end of the season, just after having completed Rasputin, we attend an emergency meeting between us, Anna Bray, and the Warmind himself. The Seraph station has been breached by Aramis, and she's gunning right for the Warsat network. This is problematic not only because of the dastardly power and control that the network brings, but also because we just can't take it because of the issue with Xivu Arath invading Earth. Rasputin needs us to get into the station, so that we can upload his engram in order for him to sacrifice himself to completely disable the Warsat network. We infiltrate the satellite and run into both House Salvation, Wrathborn, Hive, and Scorn. The mission is a swift-paced one, with us rushing to upload Rasputin before Aramis secures access to the Warsats. Aramis gains access as soon as we upload Rasputin. Meanwhile, Osiris, Anna, and Elsie Bray are sensing a shift in the last city, with Lightbearers feeling a sort of heartbeat.
Don't worry, the great machine will never abandon anyone again.
It's leaving. The Traveler is leaving. The Warsats.
Aramis, please do not do this. If you care at all for our people, if there is anything left in your heart. Make it known your pain. Anna, it's time.
For Reese.
Goodbye, Red.
For the first time in every current Guardian's lives, the Traveler moved. It rose through the clouds above the atmosphere. It is no longer hanging in the sky above the last city. Aramis initiated Abhorrent Imperative, the Warmind's protocol that would obliterate the Traveler with nuclear warsat weapons in order to prevent it from leaving humanity. We see that Aramis is listening to whispers in the dark, and the witness tells her to make the Traveler feel her pain. As we just saw, Rasputin died his final death, and sacrificed himself so that all of humanity may have a fighting chance to save off a second collapse. Rasputin is the Guardians, the Eliksnis, the Cabal, and humanity's savior. His sacrifice was the saving grace. Rasputin's penultimate act is to inform us that Osiris's visions of Nephele's stronghold are very real, with files pulled from Rasputin's Cosmodrome fragment. He had little information on it, however, and warned us that someone deleted all other information on the said stronghold. They didn't want anyone to find it. But this is open-ended. We don't know how the story ends, or if it ever ends. Now, I know the final shape, which is the name of the year after Lightfall, is supposed to be the end of the Light versus Darkness saga, not the end of Destiny. But I do not think that this story will have a definitive end or beginning. Maybe it will, but take our World Wars, for example. We read about them and we understand them as if they have clear starts and ends. Maybe they have a little bit of a build-up, a little bit of a cooldown. But they don't really. There is a long time for things to build up, for power to shift, for countries to grow, for aggression to form. And afterwards, there is always the victims of the war. Both sides left in shambles, being forced to build what they want to be a better world for themselves. But you and I are the indirect, very indirect results of World War II, which was an indirect result of World War I. Well, that was more direct. Anything, I'm just using World Wars for example, but anything that has happened in our history, it has led up to you listening to this video, to me talking into a microphone with my elf bar in my hand. That story might have a general socialized beginning and end, but we are the end of it every second that pushes forward. Stories do not stop and begin. Time in the world is continuous. Things end, power shifts, but either the Traveler or the Witness will be standing after the events of the final shape. Maybe neither of them will. Whatever the world brings, be brave, and lead with your kindest foot forwards. Thank you all for watching. I am Crazy Jake.